How the hell am I supposed to buy a property? Tough one to start with.
It is. It is. And look, it's a tough situation to be in as well, right? But I think the reason why the borrowing capacity is at that amount is because the banks have to calculate how much you can repay, not based on the current interest rates, for example, of 6.1 or 6.2%, but they actually add 3% on top of the actual rate. So you have to demonstrate you can afford to repay the loan at approximately 9% plus. So that's to ensure that if rates do go up, which they can go up, and they have gone up, right, that you can still manage the repayments. And the other question, because we do get that sort of scenario quite a lot when clients inquire with us saying, you know what, how am I supposed to buy a property if this is my borrowing capacity? Or can I borrow more money somehow? But the question I often ask them is, even let's say you could borrow more money for whatever reason, there's a magical lender out there that could lend you twice that amount or much more than what most of the banks can lend you. The challenge will be, how would you manage to afford the actual repayments? Because on that income, you take away taxes, you take away your living expenses, you take away owning a property, which comes with upkeep, maintenance. You now have to pay for all the other things that you don't currently pay as a renter, and you got to pay your new mortgage repayments. How would you live? That's the other question. So it's more around not just going in and finding out what's my borrowing capacity, but actually working out based on having a budget. What's your living expenses that you've measured or worked out over, let's say, 3-6 month period and you've tracked, and then working out how much do I have to afford the repayments?
Yep.
And using that repayment to work it backwards, right? I say to my clients, well, what can you actually afford? So they'll say, oh, it's $3,000 a month. Then we work it backwards to go, with $3,000 a month that you can afford, this is the loan that you can afford. And if it's not enough for you to buy a property that you want to live in, then you really just need to adjust your expectations. Unfortunately, for some people, even when you compromise and you look at something else that's cheaper, you're still not going to be able to buy a property. That's the unfortunate and sort of hard truth about it. In this particular situation, it's more just helping them to put it into perspective. If you could borrow $500,000, this is what the repayments would look like. Help the person understand that if you could get the loan, you wouldn't actually be able to afford the repayments, or you'd be putting a lot of pressure on yourself, and buying the property or owning a property is probably not going to be your number one stress issue anymore. Right? Is actually managing the repayment. And should something happen, you'll be in a worse situation than you are today. That's the reality of it. Just to clarify why the borrowing capacity is where it's at and why that buying a property may not be suitable at this very moment in time. So that the person doesn't kind of think, how's everybody else buying a property? Is there something wrong with me? Why is it that my borrowing capacity is so low, but I see all my family and friends buying property and borrowing $500,000, $700,000?